Whenever friends or family visit me from around the world, which oftentimes they do from the UK, Africa, India, Australia, I have frequent conversations with them about American culture, and what always intrigues them most is America's obsession with guns. So today I have decided to look at comparing governmental gun control in Switzerland, Finland, and Canada. For a reference point, America has roughly 120 guns per 100 people, which is by far the most in the world. Switzerland, Finland, and Canada are above average in their gun ownership rates, but far below the US. Switzerland has 27.6 guns per 100 people. Finland has 32.4 guns per 100 people. Canada has about 34.7 guns per 100 people. Whenever guns are brought up in conversation, something that is frequently brought up is the homicide rate or the death due to guns used in that society. So to look at the homicide rate in these countries, it's important to look at homicides that are caused by guns and then the homicide rate not caused by guns by other means such as knife attacks. So for Switzerland, has an extremely low homicide rate of 0.48 homicides per 100,000 people due to all causes, and it has a 0.09 homicide per 100,000 people as a result of solely firearms, an astoundingly low rate. Finland has a 1.65 homicides per 100,000 people, with 0.09 homicides per 100,000 people as a result of guns, the same as Switzerland. In Canada, has 2.07 homicides per 100,000 people, and 0.78 homicides per 100,000 people are results from guns. And especially Switzerland and Finland have astoundingly low homicide rates due to guns. Canada has a much lower rate than the US and many other countries, but Switzerland and Finland by far have very impressive results whenever it comes to homicide as a result of guns. So that begs the question, what are these countries doing to have such low rates? So Switzerland's gun regulations need to take many things into account. Switzerland has a long history with guns and many military-age people serving in the militia where they received training on guns. But in general, Switzerland has a ban placed on automatic weapons, silencers, and permits and background checks are required to purchase a gun. However, the ban on automatic weapons and silencers do not apply to members of the militia. Finland's gun regulations include a ban on assault-style weapons, and permits and background checks are required and must be obtained through local police forces. Additionally, Finland has a unique feature where the permit must be renewed every 10 years to assess the individual's psychological status, mental fitness, and physical readiness overall, and whether they are deemed fit to own and operate a gun. In Canada, they have a much more aggressive gun regulation than Switzerland and Finland. Permits and background checks are required for rifles and shotguns. All assault-style weapons are banned, and there is currently a freeze on buying, transferring, and bringing into the country handguns. Canada also has a gun buyback program in order to try to get as many guns off the street as possible. Now, these countries have many things in common, but they also have many differences. One of the things that they have in common is all these countries have a ban on automatic, semi-automatic, and assault-style weapons in general. They require permits and background checks. Now, the extent to how in-depth those background checks go will vary based on each country, but the fact that they have them is something that is common. And the first major difference I noticed whenever looking at governmental policy regarding the ownership of guns in their societies is that Switzerland and Finland's policies are generally pro-gun. The policies are aimed at promoting responsible use of those guns, whereas Canada's policies seem to be more anti-gun, getting guns off the street and out of people's hands. That is the way that it has come across, both in how Canadian politicians have made statements about guns and from the actual policies these countries have. The next thing that's important to keep in check is each of these countries have a certain history that shapes how they view guns. Switzerland has had a civilian militia for a huge part of its history. Finland's shooting competitions have been a major pastime in that country, sort of like how golf is a common pastime in the US. Shooting competitions are extremely common in Finland. Canada, hunting used to play a huge part in many Canadians' lives, and people used to travel all over Canada to hunt, and it has played a major role in Canada's history. Whenever I was looking at these countries, there were three major things that I learned whenever it comes to gun control and what responsible gun control for a government looks like. And the first one is that I believe permits and background checks for guns is a practice that should be standard across the board. Finland's feature of renewing permits at an appropriate time interval is a practice that should be implemented and is very easy to implement, I believe. And thirdly, perhaps not a full-on militia or mandatory military service, but some form of training in gun safety and proper use would be a worthwhile service for every country to provide those who want to use guns. Thank you for listening.